You guys had a good weekend. A few announcements before we get started. I wanted to let you know that today, how many of you have been up to the Graduate Theological Union? Do you guys know where that is? Maybe some of you haven't even heard of it. If you go up Oxford Street, just out of North Gate, there's a complex of buildings up on top of the hill. It's the Graduate Theological Union. They have a museum there, the Bade Museum, where we're going to be actually using some collections, looking at some material that they have. There's a lecture today taking place there. The curator of the museum there, his name is Aaron Brody, and at 5:30 today, he's going to be giving a lecture entitled The Extended Family in the Hebrew Bible and Household Archaeology. So he's going to be looking at a lot of the relationships that we talked about last week, the relationships between texts and archaeology, and how we can use these different lines of evidence to come to certain conclusions. So I'd recommend that you guys attend that if you can. Sections are going to start this week. Today is Monday, so those of you in the Monday section will be meeting with Tony. You got any announcements, Tony? Any? No? Yeah, okay. And last week, we spoke at length about the background to what this course is going to cover. We talked about the history, the conceptual framework of the study of ancient Near Eastern art and archaeology, as well as the climate and the landscape, how these different factors coalesce. And this week we'll actually be applying that framework to the actual material, starting at the very beginning with the transition from hunter-gatherer societies into the first settled agricultural society. So we'll be looking at that today. But before we do that, we spent a lot of time on Friday talking about archaeological method. I threw a lot of facts, a lot of different terms at you. Were there any questions about any of that material, about the archaeological process? Anything that wasn't clear? Anything you went away from thinking, I didn't understand what he was talking about at all? No, was it pretty straightforward? Okay, all right, great. We're going to be looking at these sites and actually applying these things. So again, if it was a lot of material to digest at first, we'll be coming back to it. So why don't we jump right in then? And again, we're going to be moving now to the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to the first settled agricultural societies. And this is something that we call the Neolithic Revolution. The shift is a major change in the way that we subsist, and a very late adaptation for our species. When you consider that our species, Homo sapiens sapien, began around 200,000 years ago, then this transition that takes place, again, around 10,000 to 8,000 BC, happens in different places at different times, is really a radical shift in the way that we go about subsisting and getting the food that we need to survive. And when you consider that in our species, that's only 1/16 of our history that we have actually relied on agriculture for food. The earliest evidence that we have of this comes from the Levant and Anatolia. And today we're going to focus on three different sites, Jericho, Ain Ghazal, and Katal Hayuk. And Katal Hayuk is actually in south-central Turkey. I put the names on the board just at the bottom, along with some of the dates and the different periods we're going to be talking about, so you can follow along. I should also mention we're going to put a word list up online in addition to other resources, so you guys can follow and have these names and get a sense of, the major points that we want you to come away with. Tony was good enough to also upload the Cultural Atlas online, so on BSpace now you can get access to those readings, which is great, which I didn't have either, so thanks for that, Tony. Now, we call this the Neolithic Revolution, not necessarily because it was dramatic and fast, but more because of the profound change that it had, again, on the way that we subsist. You can see, again, we come back to this map we looked at last week of the Fertile Crescent, and this shift takes place over a wide geographic area, all the way from Anatolia and into the Levant. Again, like most innovations, it occurs in multiple locations independently. We have examples showing up here in the Levant, in Anatolia, and also in the Zagros Mountains. Now, this transition had to be located in these environments that were open to natural rainfall. We're talking about a period that's before irrigation, where all of the rain that's coming down is what's being used to farm. This is called dry farming. And as we'll see, that those environmental shifts that we talked about last week had quite a bit to do with the ability to farm. Now with rain and the encroaching seas, we're able to have the conditions where farming is now possible. We see these changes take place in addition to farming. We see the domestication of a number of different kinds of plants, wheat, barley, peas, lentils, and with them a number of animals, right? We talked about sheep and goat last time. We talked about the transition to using donkeys and horses, also camels later around 1000 BC. But of course, these other commensal animals, dogs, pigs, cattle, are also domesticated. And by domesticated, we mean they become dependent on human interaction for their survival. It's not that we're hunting gazelle out in the fields anymore. Now we have sheep and goats that are completely dependent on us. Without our intervention, they die. And the same is true of the plants that we start harvesting. Selective breeding, I mean almost a form of genetic modification. We start breeding traits into the food that we eat in order that those traits better serve us. So, for example, with barley, the central axis of barley is very, very fragile in wild barley, which makes it very, very difficult to cultivate. Over time, we started selecting different species of barley and breeding them to have a stronger central core. We started breeding them where the chaff that covers the kernels became thinner. And so in this process, we created these genetic mutants, really, that serve us, but don't serve themselves in the wild, and they become dependent on us. These differences, actually, we can see archaeologically. One method we didn't talk about last time is the method of flotation. You can actually take soil and material from an archaeological site and very simply float it in water, and organic materials will float to the surface. And especially in the last century, huge advances have been made, not during the time of Schliemann and Howard Carter, like we talked about last time, but this is just another avenue for understanding when we come upon a site and we're able to collect this organic material. It's very easy then to ascertain, okay, well, what kind of society is this? What kind of grain are they consuming? Is it domesticated grain? Is it not? And that tells us quite a bit about their lifestyle and who they are. So we see the shift to agriculture, a sedentary lifestyle, and the shift from hunting and gathering to now being in one place all of the time. And how do you think this would impact you as a community? Again, we're thinking of from 200,000 BC, moving through the landscape, following herds, moving seasonally through areas to get access to food sources. Now all of a sudden you're in one place. How does that affect you as a society? What are some of the things that might change? Any? Right, okay. So now you have control over your food sources, right? So you can be in one place, you can feed more people, so yeah, larger populations. Definitely. Yeah.
Probably now an idea of property, because before it was just you followed, like you weren't settled. So now it's like this land is our land, we've cultivated it, everyone else get away.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now you have kind of the invention of personal property. You've put work into collecting grain, you've put work into building a settlement, and now, right, this is yours, and you're defending it against others. So maybe also externally, but also internally, right? You have to have social stratification, the haves and the have-nots. You've got, this is making a strange sound. You've got division of labor, right? You've got to have people who are, going to go out and take care of this grain. They're going to take care of these animals. More time for other things too, right? Now you aren't constantly looking for food, but you have time to devote to, say, craft production, to the arts. Ritual expression, that kind of stuff. So this is a really huge shift in human societies. Yeah?
Right.
Yeah, this is something that we'll see. And we're going to get to these first experiments with agriculture were a blend of the two, right? Like I was saying, the Neolithic Revolution isn't so much a massive change that happens all at once. It's this gradual shift from these different strategies to moving to more and more settled societies in the same places. And with that comes the domestication of animals, as we'll see. So this seems great, right? Now you can control your food supply. You've got kind of command, but it's also very risky, right? Moving to agriculture comes with a number of risks. You now have all your eggs in one basket. You could be attacked. You could have a bad season, have your cattle stolen, have a bad harvest, and find yourself really hurting. And so it is a very, very different strategy, one requiring a lot of backup plans, and hunting and gathering, especially in these early experiments with agriculture, remained a critical component of early farming. Not only is it a little risky, but also ethnographic studies, those done in South Africa with the Kong people and other modern hunting and gathering societies, have shown that actually hunting and gathering, you actually expend less energy and less effort, and it's less stressful than farming. So it raises the question of why would you shift to this? Larger populations are great, but also with larger populations in cities, now you have disease, you have competition. There are a number of drawbacks to this too. So the question is, why did this take place? Well, there are a number of different theories for this that have been going around since people started addressing these questions. Climactic stress, like we talked about last time. We talked about this change in climate around 10,000 BC that really caused a lot of differences in rainfall. Dry farming, about 250 millimeters of annual rainfall, which now allows for the land to actually be used for farming. The idea of climactic shift also goes the other way, right? Perhaps climactic changes around this time led to the need to control the food supply. We needed more reassurance, especially in Mesopotamia, where unlike Egypt, where regular flooding ensured that the Nile could be used for agriculture, planting or putting silts along the sides of the Nile and providing this great resource. Rivers in Mesopotamia were very different. They flooded at the wrong time of year, and it was a much more chaotic environment, leading maybe to the need to control it. Anything from changes in human communities, territorial conflicts, the need for security, population increases. The truth is, we most likely, again, seeing it emerge in different places, and also, right, Mesoamerica, it emerges independently, could be any number of reasons, probably a combination of many factors that led to this shift. It's a bit of a chicken and the egg question. The fact that the Neolithic Revolution occurs across such a wide and varied terrain, however, can partially be explained by the spread of knowledge of agriculture. We do know that there were a number of trade routes in the Neolithic, and again, here's this shot of the Fertile Crescent, the distribution of wild barley and wheat. And you can really see that crescent there. Distribution of sheep and goats. Again, these are from Rofe, so you can go back and check these out. But we do know that there was extensive trade during this period. Obsidian from Anatolia. And obsidian's great because not only can it be used for making tools, but it's actually traceable chemically. You can take a piece of obsidian and actually find its source chemically. And we found pieces of obsidian almost 800 kilometers away from their sources. So for this very early period, trade and contact is incredibly extensive. The other items as well attest to this. Shells that come from the Red Sea, finding their way